As I reviewed the credit card statement, something I usually left to my husband, Henry, I came across several unexpected charges. $4,200 at a luxury hotel, $1,300 at upscale restaurants, and $600 at a renowned spa. These expenses had all been prepaid and strangely coincided with the dates when Henry was supposed to be attending a PTA board retreat for our daughter Janet's middle school. Although I'm not an expert in finances, something felt off. Henry, who had taken on the role of a stay-at-home dad, had always been my anchor, allowing me to immerse myself in my nursing career at the university hospital. His unwavering support meant I could work long and unpredictable hours without the guilt that often accompanies a demanding profession. His choice to stay home not only bolstered my career but also provided a buffer against the stresses of juggling work and family life. Yet, these charges suggested there might be plans that didn't involve our family. With a mix of emotions, I slipped a note into his wallet and made a discreet phone call. Henry was scheduled to leave for his retreat in a week, and I hoped that whatever was happening would result in a memorable experience for him. I'm Nancy, and the frantic pace of my job often blurs the line between day and night. Still, it's Henry's unwavering support and our daughter Janet's understanding that keep me going through the toughest days. Henry has always respected my dedication, standing firm against the curious glances of other parents while remaining fully committed to our family and his role in the PTA. His encouragement has been a cornerstone of our life together, motivating me to excel in my career while he manages our home with care and dedication. As the primary breadwinner, I've always prioritized our family's financial stability. One afternoon, my routine was interrupted by a call from my credit card company about an overdraft. Just the day before, I had switched the debit account linked to my credit card for convenience, but unfortunately, the funds hadn't transferred in time. In a rush, I opened my credit card statement, something I hadn't done in years. Given that I typically entrusted financial matters to Henry and was hit with a shock, the balance was alarmingly high. My heart raced as I scrolled through the transactions, bewildered by the purchases. There were numerous charges from designer boutiques, a well-known perfume shop, and a luxury watch retailer. I recognized these brands. While I admired their products, I hadn't bought anything from them recently. Confused, I pondered the possibility that Henry, who also had a card on this account, might be planning a surprise for me. Yet, I hadn't received any gifts. And curiously, all the purchases were made on Wednesdays, days when I worked night shifts and Henry was usually tied up with PTA meetings. What was going on? I decided I needed to confront Henry as soon as I got home. After a long shift, I was almost at our house when I heard someone call my name. It was Catherine, a fellow PTA member and one of the few mothers I recognized from the school. "Hi, Nancy. It's been a while. Just getting off work?" She greeted me with a warm smile. "Yes, just heading home. Thanks for always being there for Henry," I replied, grateful for her support. "I hope he hasn't caused you too much trouble." Our encounter offered a brief distraction from my worries, but the urgency to uncover the mystery behind the credit card statement still gnawed at me. Struggling to find my words, I quickly redirected the conversation to safer topics. Catherine gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder and remarked on my distracted demeanor. As she shifted, a familiar scent wafted through the air, the same exclusive Marie perfume listed in the recent charges. It was the very fragrance I had yearned to own, having sampled it at the store but never actually purchased. "That smells amazing. That's the one I've always wanted. Did you buy it?" I blurted out, immediately regretting my nosy question. My curiosity felt tinged with jealousy, and I chastised myself for letting it slip. Yet, the realization that all those puzzling credit card transactions occurred on Wednesdays, the same days as the PTA meetings, only fueled my unease. My suspicions deepened when Catherine cheerfully replied, "Actually, I got it as a gift. It was our anniversary the other day." Her laughter was light and genuine. "Oh, that's wonderful. You two are so in love." I responded, forcing a smile while trying to suppress the gnawing doubts in my mind. Our conversation drifted to other casual topics, and eventually, we said our goodbyes. Yet, despite her seemingly innocent demeanor, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. As I walked away, her words echoed in my mind. She mentioned our anniversary, but she hadn't clarified that it was with her husband. Suddenly, I halted, my thoughts swirling in confusion. I glanced back, hoping to clarify the slip, but Catherine had already vanished. The urge to chase after her and confront her about my suspicions surged within me, fueled by an escalating certainty that an affair was brewing between her and Henry. What once was a mere seed of doubt had blossomed into an undeniable truth I could no longer ignore. As the next Wednesday approached and my family sent me off to work as usual, I steeled myself to confront whatever truths lay hidden, ready to unravel the mysteries that clouded my heart. I discreetly arranged to leave work early without telling Henry, revealing my intentions would defeat the purpose. So, I waited in secret near our home. As anticipated, my mother-in-law arrived, and shortly after, Henry headed out for what seemed like another PTA board meeting. I quietly followed him to the school, where the meeting was being held in a classroom. About 30 minutes later, the members began to disperse. Most hurried home, but Henry lingered behind. Eventually, he exited the building, and what I saw next shattered my heart. Catherine stepped forward to greet him, their eyes locking as they intertwined their fingers, their connection unmistakable. They walked away together toward a hotel, oblivious to my presence just a few meters away. Anger and sorrow twisted my features as I stood there, feeling utterly betrayed. I had trusted him, loved him. Had he encouraged my long work hours just to carve out his own time? As I stood frozen in disbelief, my phone buzzed with a notification, another charge on our credit card for the very hotel they had just entered. Eventually, they emerged, looking happy and carefree. I managed to snap a few photos as evidence of their affair, my heart hardening with each click. The tears had dried. All trace of affection was gone. From that day forward, I distanced myself from Henry as much as possible, using my job as an excuse. A part of me wanted to file for divorce immediately, but that would mean tearing Janet away from her father, a decision I wasn't ready to make without careful consideration. One night, lost in my troubled thoughts and quietly crying in the living room, I was jolted back to reality by Janet's voice. "Mom?" It seemed she had either stayed up late or woken up due to the disturbance. She approached and wrapped her arms around me in a gentle hug, a simple act that felt like a lifeline amidst the turmoil. Her words struck a chord, releasing a flood of emotions I had been holding back. "I don't want you to be sad, Mom. Your enemies are my enemies, and I won't forgive anyone who makes you sad. Not even Dad." Her declaration brought tears to my eyes, tears of gratitude for her support and tears of regret for the upheaval I knew a divorce would bring. "If we go through with this, things will change drastically," I explained. "We might have to move, and you won't see your dad every day. You might even have to change schools and leave your friends behind." She cut through my torrent of worries with unwavering determination. "I still want to be with you, Mom. I want to be a nurse like you. I'll be okay. So please do what you think is best," she said, gripping my hands tightly. Her encouragement bolstered my resolve. With her support, I began to monitor our finances more closely, a habit that soon revealed further discrepancies. I uncovered plans for a so-called week-long PTA board retreat, a notion that seemed absurd for parents who should be prioritizing their children. Such a lengthy absence didn't align with Henry's usual commitments, and the extravagant details on the credit card only added to my suspicions. Henry had underestimated my vigilance. His attempts to cover his tracks were crumbling. Armed with a detailed list of credit card transactions, reservations at an upscale restaurant, hotel booking confirmations, and even a request for a surprise cake, I had amassed enough evidence. The reality of his deception was glaring. and with Janet's unwavering support, I felt ready to confront the situation and protect our future. I had always appreciated Henry for choosing to be a stay-at-home dad, believing it was my duty to work hard and provide for our family. However, discovering his betrayal was a crushing blow. It felt personal, but more importantly, it threatened the very fabric of our family. On my next day off, I began to put my plan into action, a subtle form of revenge for his deceit. First, I reached out to every hotel and restaurant where he had made reservations, since the bookings were in his name and I had all the details. Posing as his wife raised no suspicions. Later that evening, I moved on to the next part of my plan. Henry had switched from using cash to relying on our shared credit card after we got married. I found his wallet in the living room and swapped his current card with an expired one. It looked identical but had been void for 7 months. My previous procrastination in throwing it away suddenly served a purpose. If he attempted to use the expired card, he wouldn't realize the mistake until it was declined, hopefully far from home, making it difficult to rectify. The next morning, as Henry cheerfully announced he was leaving for meetings to discuss school improvements, he told Janet to take good care of me. We both smiled, masking our true feelings beneath a facade of normalcy. Once he was out of sight, our smiles vanished, and we sprang into action, hastily packing our belongings. The movers arrived promptly, their efficiency a blessing. We quickly relocated to our new home. As they asked where to place the last boxes, I casually replied, "Oh, don't worry about those. Just leave them there." They shrugged and continued, leaving the boxes piled in one corner. Amid this whirlwind of activity, a strange peace enveloped me, tinged with the bittersweet realization that this might be the last time things felt normal with Henry. As Janet and I unpacked in our new space, I felt a growing resolve within us, ready to embrace a fresh start. After handing over the last boxes to the moving crew, who had arrived just in time, we ensured that all of Henry's belongings were packed away. The house was left stark and empty, devoid of his presence. In the living room, where we had shared countless memories, I laid out a poignant display, recent credit card statements, photos of Henry and Catherine that I had secretly taken, and my wedding ring, now stripped of all its significance, accompanied by the finality of divorce papers. My phone buzzed with missed calls, all from Henry, who must have sensed that something was off during his trip. Ignoring his frantic attempts to reach me, I sent a text explaining that I was tied up with emergency operations and couldn't respond. I silenced my phone, placing it at the bottom of my bag, distancing myself from the chaos of his calls. Janet and I exchanged a rueful laugh over the situation. It felt surreal, almost like a scene from a play unfolding in real life. "Oh, right. I should probably make one last call," I mused, realizing there was one more thing to handle. We made that call a little later, finalizing the last piece of our exit strategy. A week later, Henry returned from his so-called business trip, cheerful and unsuspecting. He walked into what he expected to be a lively home, only to be met with emptiness and silence. The harsh reality hit him hard as he discovered the documents and items I had left behind. He tried calling me repeatedly, but to no avail. I had already blocked Henry's number when an unknown one flashed on his phone. Hopeful, he answered immediately, only to be met with a demand for payment. The caller was a hotel manager explaining that all the bookings Henry thought were prepaid needed to be settled in cash because the credit card had expired. Humiliated and desperate, Henry scrambled to borrow money to cover the costs. "So, did you manage to borrow $5,000 from each of them? That's a lot of money. Did you go overseas? Must have been quite the trip. I hope Catherine didn't give you too much trouble," I said, my voice calm but laced with irony. Caught off guard, Henry's response was a mix of confusion and frustration, his voice dropping to a strained whisper. The weight of his situation crashed down around him, shattering the foundations of his deception and leaving him exposed and vulnerable. In the silence of the empty house, he turned pale, trembling so severely that he could barely speak. Is this Catherine? He stuttered, mistaking the caller for someone else. I'm honored you remember me. Yes, this is her husband. I know everything about you. I'll be demanding alimony, and I won't let you get away with this, the voice on the other end declared firmly, leaving no room for discussion. The call ended abruptly, leaving Henry stunned and speechless. Frantic, Henry tried to reach Catherine, but her phone was dead. It had been disconnected, a clear sign that her husband had been aware of the affair and had already taken action. Catherine's husband, cold and calculating, had contacted me earlier that day to inform me about their infidelity. Although he was shocked to learn the identity of his wife's partner, he wasn't entirely surprised by her betrayal. He expressed deep remorse and even offered to cooperate in any plans I had for exposing them. Armed with the address of Catherine's parents, provided by her husband, I sent all of Henry's belongings, along with copies of the divorce papers and the photos documenting their affair, to their home. Her parents, prominent and successful business owners, were furious. The scandal quickly became the talk of the neighborhood, resulting in Catherine's divorce and the loss of custody of her children due to her infidelity. Once a pillar of support, her family turned their backs on her, driven by the disgrace she had brought upon their reputation. They even refused to let her inside their home when she arrived in tears. Left with no one to turn to, Catherine was forced to move into a modest apartment, taking a job known for its grueling hours and low pay to cover her alimony expenses. Meanwhile, Janet and I temporarily moved in with my parents until the divorce was finalized. Henry, now isolated and grappling with the fallout from his actions, returned to his roots, seeking solace on the farm. Despite everything that had transpired, I maintained contact with Henry's family, primarily because they were deeply invested in Janet's well-being. Henry's father confided that he now dedicates every waking moment to working on the farm, driven by the need to keep up with alimony and child support payments. His voice was heavy with disappointment as he spoke about Henry's circumstances. My lawyer successfully negotiated a substantial amount for both alimony and child support, ensuring that Henry's financial obligations were considerable. This would force him to work extensively, making it difficult for him to save anything for himself in the foreseeable future. His father described it as a living hell. Once the divorce was finalized, Janet and I settled into a new home, and she started at a new school. Her teachers and classmates were incredibly welcoming, allowing her to thrive in her new environment, which brought me immense comfort. With Henry no longer in our daily lives, I took on the household duties, striving to balance work and home responsibilities, a task more challenging than I had anticipated. Yet, I vastly prefer this life. Despite the increased workload, it feels liberating to be free from the turmoil and deceit that marked my previous marriage. I am now more committed to living a happier and more productive life, embracing the freedom from past negativity. This refreshing change reminds me every day that moving forward was the right choice for both Janet and me.